Well, welcome. I'm Timothy Carroll and here with Matt Walden, osteopath and naturopath, and fantastic. He just lectured to the Osteopathic Society here in England recently, and has worked with world-class football teams like Chelsea and consulted to elite athletes and top leaders around the world. So good to have Matt. We're discussing the six principles of health and have touched on eating right, breathing right, and moving right. And today we're going to be looking at sleeping right. Super big issue for so many people in the world with insomnia, right, Matt?
Absolutely, yeah. And we've kind of got a mass insomnia situation because when you look at the average night's sleep in the world today, depending on which figures you look at, is somewhere around 5 to 6 hours per night. And if you went back 100 years, maybe now 120 years, but you would find that figure, the average night's sleep, would have been up around about 10 hours. And then with the advent of the electric light and, the national grids and this kind of thing, electricity, in the early 1900s, what happened was the average night's sleep dropped to between 8 and 9 hours per night. And then somewhere around the mid 19th century, as television became a thing and became affordable and was, fairly accessible, then the average night's sleep dropped below 8 hours. And then as you move into the 80s and 90s with video recorders and then the internet arising, it's dropped back even further. So now we're somewhere between 5 and 6 hours. So physiologically speaking, that's the biggest impact on our physiology in the history of humankind. It's a massive impact. And there's certain phrases like "I'm going to live while I'm alive and sleep while I'm dead," but the problem is you're going to die a lot sooner if you don't sleep. And in fact, one of my colleagues that did his research into sleep and biological rhythm said that the shortest cut to the grave is to essentially mess with your sleep. So when you start doing shift work, or if you start pulling all-nighters for work and it becomes a habit that you're going to bed late, getting up early, it's such a profound impact on your hormonal system that it creates all kinds of other health complications. So that's the kind of the bad news up front, if you like.
Yeah. So how does that impact, like obviously we're living in a new world and a pandemic world, and obviously there's going to be pandemic worlds coming in the future, but sounds like sleep is critical for overall health. But in this world that we're in right now, why is it so important that we rest and get good sleep?
Well, the interesting thing is that the way the body works is it's kind of got two modes of function. It's either in fight, flight, or it's in rest and digest. And so when we're sleeping, we're in rest and digest and repair. And so that's when the immune system is up. And this is why, those of you that got kids will notice that when kids are unwell, their temperature goes up in the evening. And normally during the day, they're okay. But by then the evening comes around, their temperature goes up. That's because the immune system's coming online. When you're awake, your stress hormones are what are kind of keeping you awake and making you active, and they inhibit the immune system. So when there's a situation like we have at the moment with the COVID-19, you want to get as much rest as you can to facilitate your immune function. But one of the components of that is that as you rest, you release a hormone called melatonin. So this is your sleep hormone. And melatonin is a potent antiviral and a potent antioxidant substance. In fact, it's the most potent antioxidant substance in the human body. And when we stay up late, we actually inhibit production of melatonin. So this is one of the really interesting things about, and sad things in a way, about the frontline medics is that, of course, not only are they in an environment where they are being exposed to the virus, but they're also really messing with their melatonin output, because one of the things that impacts melatonin output the most is staying up at night and being exposed to lights and working through the night. So then they're at a double jeopardy kind of situation. So anyway, for most of us that don't have to do that, the key thing is to avoid light, particularly into the mid to late evening, and especially to avoid screens if possible, or to minimize screen exposure. There is a sort of element of avoiding blue light, which is something that you get from screens. You tend not to get it from so much from standard lights. But if you're using a laptop, if you're using a phone or a tablet, you can get, actually I don't have them here in front of me, but you can get a set of what are called blue light blocking glasses, and
Right.
it's just like sunglasses basically. And you can watch a TV or work on your computer with those on. But I still wouldn't particularly recommend that as optimal. It's a kind of it's a patch type way of working. The ideal is to avoid screens completely from kind of mid-evening onwards, and to perhaps read a book, or take a walk, or do some meditation, or just chill out in a dim environment.
So give us an idea of what a healthy cycle through the cortisol level cycle and the melatonin level cycle. What should people actually be doing to get that healthy cycle and those hormones in balance now?
Well, yeah, so it starts out actually with cortisol, as you mentioned there. You want to get your cortisol up in the morning. That's what wakes you up, and it naturally goes up in the morning. That is, as I say, what kind of stimulates you to wake up from your sleep. But so then to go out and move and to get daylight exposure early in the day is ideal. So if you're able to get outside, then absolutely, get outside, get some sunlight in your eyes. Don't wear sunglasses. That's a really bad idea. In general, it's a bad idea. Let's say to do all the time, at least. I mean, obviously, if you're standing, a good time to wear sunglasses is when you're in the car, because for safety reasons, but also because you're not getting any benefits of the light, particularly inside a car. But also, if you're having to stand and watch a football match or something from one direction, you're just staring into the sun the whole time, that then again, sunglasses can be beneficial. But when you're out and about, moving around, walking around, I would try and avoid sunglasses where you can, because you want to get sunlight onto the retina, and that stimulates your immune system. It stimulates your cortisol function as well. So that's the start of the day. And then in the afternoon and evening, of course, the sun starts to go down. And as you get exposed to light, so then the cortisol drops off, and what should happen is that the melatonin starts to rise up, and that's what makes you feel sleepy going into the evening time. The issue for us is that we, of course, expose ourselves to light, and we often expose ourselves to dramas on the TV and, sports occasions and things that bring our cortisol back up, and then we can't get to sleep. So, those are some elements. Obviously, things like coffees and teas that have caffeine, tobacco to some degree will stimulate your cortisol levels. There's certain things that can push your cortisol up and are best avoided in the latter half of the day. A lot of people ask about exercise as well in the evening, because sometimes that's the only time they can get out and exercise. And it's suboptimal to exercise in the evening. It's better to exercise than to not exercise. But if you do have to exercise in the evening, what I would say is try and keep it short and sharp, or long and relaxed. So like going out for an evening stroll is good. It doesn't send you into a fight flight state. But going out for an hour and a half bike ride in the evening, that's a really bad idea. Whereas maybe doing a 20-minute or half an hour circuit, which is short and sharp, that's fine. That won't impact on your cortisol too much at all. It's the kind of moderate level and longer duration exercise that's really going to impact on your cortisol levels. So you want to avoid that. And one thing for your business people that are traveling, when you travel across time zones with this knowledge, what you can do is you can get up early in the morning, as in sort of normal time in the new time zone, let's say 6 a.m., something like that, 6:30, and get outside, get moving, and do it if you can on the first day or two that you're in a new time zone. Try and get in at least an hour, if not an hour and a half's movement in the sunlight first thing in the morning. And that stimulates cortisol to be released at that time, and that resets your body clock quicker than anything else. So that's a good tip if you're traveling across time zones.
Great tip for those that actually have trouble sleeping or switching off. I know I have clients that have that issue in the business world, executives constantly doing. What tips would you give to them to be able to learn to switch off their mind or calm themselves down so that they can actually fall asleep and get that deep rest?
Sure, sure. I think there's various elements to that. You know, one is good habits in terms of keeping lists and planning, you know, so that you can allow the mind to rest a little bit, and to do that not too close to bedtime. So, you know, make it a practice at the end of your day that you have your list or your planning mapped out for the next day or next week or whatever, so that your mind isn't constantly worrying over it in the evening. So that's one sort of element of it. But the other element is that then, having done that, you should find a space in your evening where, in fact, using that turn of phrase, finding a space in the evening. There's a poet, William Blake, some people will have heard of, and he said, poetry gives you a space in the day where the devil cannot find you.
Oh.
And what he was saying there is, he's talking about, when he refers to the devil, he's talking about the strategic mind. Okay, so essentially the left hemisphere and analytical strategic mind. So if we can use things like poetry, artwork, music, meditation, gentle walking, gentle stretching, all of these things take us into a more right-brained and more parasympathetic or rest and digest state. So it calms everything down. And the reason William Blake said that is that, of course, poetry takes you to another place, and art takes you to another place, especially if you're engaged in it, either writing it or absorbing it consciously, kind of focusing on it. So those are a few tips. You know, you can use music as well that specifically takes your brainwave state down to a more relaxed state, which would be called a theta brainwave state. Classical music, yeah, absolutely. The Mozart effect does the same kind of thing. So I find that personally very helpful to use music. But yeah, artwork, if you like drawing or you find it fun, you could just get an art book and start doing some sketches, or drawing some mandalas is another great concept. Learn how to draw a mandala or to color in a mandala, and that can really calm the nervous system down in a very sort of effective way.
Excellent, Nate. So basically, you know, 100, 200 years ago, we didn't have all of these artificial lights, and this is, you know, impacting our cortisol levels and melatonin levels. But the tips, in summary, you've said, get up and get going, wake up with the sun, exercise, get those cortisol levels going, make sure that you're allowing the cortisol levels to drop in the afternoon. Don't have coffee in the afternoon. Don't smoke. No, not too much sugar. Avoid sugar. I think we've discussed before. And then calm it down and allow the body to allow the melatonin to come in the evenings. You know, reduce lights and practice the arts and listen to music. And if you are going to exercise, do it short and sharp or long and relaxed, basically. So awesome strategies for people moving forward. That's great. We're going to call it a day on this one, on sleep. And we're going to move into looking at our next subject, which is about drinking right. So we've talked about eat right, breathe right, move right, and sleep right. And you can listen to session number 1, 2, or 3 previously. And today we've discussed a big issue in society nowadays, sleeping. Look forward to discussing drinking, mate. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. It is. And there's a lot more to it than you'd expect.
Yeah. So thanks for today, buddy. And we'll catch up drinking right in our next episode.
Excellent. Look forward to it. Thanks, Timothy. Bye-bye.